Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Dare County. Really appreciate you being here. Before we get started, I'd like to certainly recognize some folks up here at the podium. To my right, we have Vice Chairman Wally Overman with us. We have Commissioner Marguerite Umflett. We have Commissioner Boswell. And we certainly have our good Senator Bill Cook with us here today. And to my left, we have Malcolm Fearing, who is, all of you aware that he is our representative on Transportation Board. We certainly have Secretary Kathryn Johnston, the North Carolina Department of Administration, and certainly last but not least, our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. Dan, thank you so much for being here. We have some couple of people in the audience. Gary Perry. Gary, come on up here. You've got some comments to make. The mayor of Kitty Hawk, and Monica Thibodeau's here today from Duck, Vice Chair of Duck. And we have Jerry Jennings and Ed Goodwin, our Ferry Division. Bobby Alton all the way in the back there is our county manager. Just real briefly, we wanted to do this just to let you know what the status in Dare County was with our storm situation. There were some 4,500 residents in all of Dare County that had damages with the storm of Matthew. Right now, our numbers, and we expect those to grow, is in excess of $52 million. Our hardest hit was Hatteras Island and Frisco, which of that $52 million, some $30 million of that alone was in Hatteras Island and Frisco alone. But some of the typical damages that we saw here from Matthew throughout the county was tremendous flooding in in Hatteras and Frisco. We had a number of homes there. Let me give you a couple more statistics. That of that 4,500, 3,800 homes had some form of damage. There was 407 minor incidences to homes, and some major 294 major damages for homes down there in our community on Hatteras Island and Frisco. And anything from storm damage as far as roof damage, shingles blown off of their roof, siding, massive flooding. Just in Martins Point alone, there was tremendous trees down, a lot of water standing. So this storm brought unprecedented flooding to Dare County that our citizens are trying to recoup from as you speak. And as we stand right here on this site, Highway 12, our Transportation Secretary, I'm sure, will speak to that, was damaged considerably here in Kitty Hawk, and I'm sure the mayor will have some comments about that. But we're just grateful that we've got our contractor down here, TAG, that's taking care of, they've started picking up Monday in Hatteras Island, and they're working their way north. Our folks from the county, our public services folks, they've already started in Collington and Martins Point, their gated community. So we've got that ongoing and coming. So the FEMA's in here. They just came in today. They've set up in Manio. We've got some seven members of FEMA here working with us. So again, thank you all for being here. And I want to say, continue to keep your thoughts and prayers for our citizens of Dare County with the amount of damages that you've seen take place from Matthew. And at this time, I would certainly like to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. And Dan, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, sir. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being out here today. We are obviously on a very long road to recovery here in North Carolina. Nobody east of Raleigh was immune to this storm and the damages that this storm wreaked upon our state. It's unprecedented flood damage in North Carolina. We've certainly seen our share over the years, but This one is the biggest we've seen, touching the most counties, affecting the largest number of people, and it's going to be a long, long road to recovery. My own house was damaged by a tree, about half of it destroyed by a tree in Raleigh. A lot of that type of damage around the Raleigh and Johnson County area, and then significant flooding east. But here's the difference, where folks like us in the urban parts of the state may have homeowners insurance to cover damage such as that. There are tens of thousands of people in down eastern North Carolina that won't have flood insurance to deal with their homes being flooded and their businesses being flooded. And so this is going to be a long, long road to recovery, and we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can as North Carolinians to reach out to our neighbors across the state. When the TV cameras go off and time goes by, when everything dries out and all the flood waters have receded and all the roads like Highway 12 have been rebuilt, know that it's still going to be maybe a couple years worth of recovery for some of our folks in the state. So we've seen, again, tens of thousands of people impacted, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of damage, roads that are going to take many, many months to repair, bridges, dams, levees that are going to take many, many months to repair. And so the governor and I have been crossing the state now for some weeks looking at the damage. We have people on the ground, and all these counties are still assessing damage. The majority of the homes that have been damaged have been assessed, but there's still a large number left. And so the governor's put in place a task force. So again, once the cameras are gone, once FEMA packs up and goes back to Washington, D.C. or wherever they came from around the country, once it's kind of off everybody's minds, this task force is going to be in place to deal with the long-term recovery process in North Carolina. And our Secretary of the Department of Administration, Kathryn Johnston, is going to come up here and give you some more detail about what that task force is tasked with, what they're already doing, and what they're going to be doing in the future. So, Kathryn, if you will.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Senator Cook, Dare County Board of Commissioners, Mayor Perry, and all the guests here today. As Lieutenant Governor has just mentioned, we are very pleased Governor Pat McCrory has announced the establishment of the Hurricane Matthew Recovery Committee. He'll be coordinating this rebuilding effort for many, many years to come after this storm. The governor has highlighted the immediate action the state has taken and has outlined his long-term plans to be made after the recovery. This committee is intended to meet 5 main objectives: to raise money for those in need through the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund for Hurricane Matthew, particularly in regards to providing permanent housing and reopening and rebuilding critical infrastructure as fast and as safe as possible. Also, to implement a comprehensive strategy for how to rebuild towns and communities in a sustainable way going forward. Also, of course, to assess the storm's financial impact on agriculture, small businesses, commercial fishermen, and many other industries. And to develop an economic recovery plan of action and to implement a plan and any necessary legislative action moving forward. The governor has also signed an executive order calling legislators to provide flexibility with school calendars for schools that were closed because of this storm. The governor is requesting that school boards not reschedule lost school days until after legislative action can be taken. The state has also taken many measures to provide disaster food stamp benefits to impacted counties, to those who receive SNAP benefits, and to those who are not normally eligible. The governor has approved disaster unemployment assistance for those who've lost their jobs as a result of this storm. And finally, he has extended the tax filing deadline and waived the late penalties for any taxpayer in the impacted counties. We are aware, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, this is a long rebuilding process. This governor and this administration are committed to these relief efforts and our full and complete recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathryn. We now have our Representative Senator Bill Cook. Bill.
I don't think they would fit me. My heart and my prayers go out to all the folks who have been negatively impacted by this Storm Matthew. Folks have lost life and lost property. God bless you, and we're going to try to help. We're going to do the best we can to get you back up and running again. If you look down this road here, you can see the kind of damage that has happened here. This is incredible. But the people we are, particularly out here on the coast, we're gonna bounce back. We're gonna do good. We're gonna take this in stride and move on. I want to particularly thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for your help, your leadership in this recovery. And I particularly want to also thank our first responders. These guys are out here in the middle of a storm, risking their life and limb to help us. There's no higher calling than helping your fellow men in that regard. This damage will be with us for quite a while, as others have pointed out. This is going to be a major recovery. It's going to take a while, but if we all pull together and work hard at it, this will be just a bad memory, as the song would say. I want you to know that my office will be glad to help anybody that we can to try to mitigate your problems with whatever agencies involved in trying to fix whatever's broken. We're going to work very hard at this, and we're going to do a really good job. Again, I just want to thank all the brave folks who have helped us through this tragedy. We're very fortunate to have the first responders that we do, and may God bless all of us, and particularly our first responders in the great North State. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and appreciate everything your office is doing to help us down here. I can't thank you enough for all of your support. At this time, we'll hear from Malcolm Fearing, our representative on NCDOT.
I appreciate Dan and Secretary Johnston being here. Before I start, I always like to shout out some people that are near and dear to me and near and dear to each and every one of y'all, and that's our DOT staff. Randy, where's Randy? Jerry, you guys raise your hand, okay? Jerry, Ed with the Ferry Division. Where's Jed? Jed with the Ferry Division. Many people don't realize that before a disaster or a storm of this type hits shore, there are many people in government at work. Bobby, you know the efforts, and Bob, you know the efforts, and the control group, what has to go on in preparation to help protect life and property. This storm was unprecedented in scope. It had a potential of being a Hazel event. Not many people here realize what Hazel was. It wasn't in my lifetime, but Bob, it was probably in yours because you're a little bit older than me. This storm, when it packed winds of 140 to 165 miles an hour, it's a storm that absolutely everybody in this state paid attention to. But particularly in Raleigh, under the leadership of our governor and his legislative staff and Senator Cook. The preparation began before the storm happened. Funds have been put aside for an event like this over the last several years under the leadership of our governor and our legislative body to react to such a storm. And to that, we are now the beneficiaries of that. Senator Cook, you mentioned loss of life. Some 20-some people lost their life in this storm. We can rebuild, but the loss of life will never come back. I was with the governor the other day. Second time the governor has visited us this month in northeastern North Carolina, assessing the storm damage. And he told a story of a responder in Princeville a firefighter who responded to a car that was going underwater, had a lady in the car. He dove underwater. He tried to save the person, had a rope attached to him to his fellow firefighters. He went under. He stayed under for over a minute and a half. His wife was a volunteer. She heard the cries of his fellow firefighters saying, "The chief is down, the chief is down." Can you imagine that event? This is the type of people we have in North Carolina that serve us in our state. The sound bites that we hear today, the political sound bites, cast a bad tone for government, whether what side of the party or the fence you're on. But I stand to tell you, as a member of the Department of Transportation, we have a good government. We have a responding government. We have a caring government. And it's being shown now in the events that have transpired over the last few weeks. I'm very thankful for the leadership under this administration, under the local government. Mayor Perry, this is the 4th or 5th time that we've responded to this one particular section of road. Some $5 million has been spent on this road. And I'll say it's been done without a budget, without an environmental assessment, and without a long drawn-out process. I would hope you would agree that we have responded to your needs as quickly as we can. And to that, WAF Construction, you all have been here again to help us. I thank you for that, and I thank you for the Department of Transportation and under the leadership of our Governor and Secretary Tennyson. So there are many places in northeastern North Carolina that have suffered significant damage. But again, thanks to the responsibility and the foresight of the governor and the administration, from our two cohorts here, cohort's probably the wrong word. But I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. They know us down east. They know us from Raleigh down east, and for that we are forever grateful. Again, to the first responders and all of you that serve us in the state, thank you very much. So.
Thank you, Malcolm. Appreciate those comments. I'd like to bring forward our mayor of Kitty Hawk, Gary Perry. This is, as Malcolm said, this is certainly not his first rodeo when it comes to Highway 12. This is one of the most popular sites on the beach. And Mayor Perry, would you come forward for a few comments, please?
Thank you. Thank you. I look before me and I see reporters I've seen many times here. You've visited us. We've talked about this road. You've seen the shots. The first thing I want to say is I cannot thank the Department of Transportation, all those good people. I can't thank you enough for how quickly you've responded, how thoroughly you've responded. You prepare, you come when we need you, you take no for an answer and just go do it. Thank you. Just thank you ever so much. About 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, this place behind you here happened the first time. There was a kind of a quandary of, what are we going to do? The ocean's out here. There's no beach left. We don't have nourishment plans, that sort of thing. How are we going to fix this? My word that came down to me was the governor said, fix it, keep the road intact, whatever else may happen. And from there, we've done this at least 4 times. We may have to do it again. Hopefully with beach nourishment coming next year, that will help the situation. It won't erase the situation. But the people that have supported us and been Johnny on the spot deserve all the credit. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary. We've got a few minutes. If anyone has any questions for the Lieutenant Governor or Kathryn, any of us, if there's any questions, we've got a few minutes if there are any. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about what's being done right now here on Interstate 12?
Absolutely, absolutely. Jerry, why don't you come forward? This is our Jerry Jennings is with NCDOT. Jerry, the question is, can you fill us in, the media, what's going on here right now, what's taking place to fix 12 right here now?
Certainly.
Thank you.
This area was damaged initially during Tropical Storm Hermine, which occurred about a month in advance of Matthew. We had a contract in place. We're just beginning work when Hurricane Matthew hit. So between the two storms, we have had about 350 feet of pavement loss, about 2,500 feet of dune loss, and the reconstruction activities involve extending the sandbags another 400 feet, reconstructing the dune, and reconstructing the pavement. WAF Contracting is doing that for us, making really good progress, and we hope to have the road open by Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Jerry. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, for the Lieutenant Governor. Just wondering, why today? Why is it so important for you to come down here today to see Kitty Hawk and the
It was just next on the path today. We've been traveling across the state and going county by county, and assessing damage. And so we started closer to Raleigh, and we've been making our way further east. So there were several other things going on here today, so we decided to jump in and come see what was going on here as well. But the story's similar, really all over. We were in Kinston a few days ago, right as the water was just starting to recede, and the same types of issues you have there. You have washed out roads, washed out dams, people's homes underwater, businesses underwater. It's the same story across the state.
I guess I just have one more question about the task force that's been put together. As far as that goes, they're kind of like, you're saying that we'll know more as we get forward as the recovery ends, or not the recovery, but as this kind of period ends and FEMA pulls out. What are some of the major points? You mentioned though, but what's the most important thing for the governor in terms of getting these people back on their feet?
Well, I'd say first and foremost is temporary housing is number one, right? I mean, FEMA comes in, they have a long process of assessment to do. And that assessment process is first they have to determine eligibility for the folks that can get assistance from FEMA. And then they have to determine what they're going to do with every single individual structure. Are they going to remove that structure out of the floodplain? Are they going to raise the structure? Are they going to rebuild the structure? Are they going to put these people in housing somewhere else? It's a long path. That's about 3 months. But in the meantime, there are still people. We have about 450 people, I think it is today, as of today, still living in shelters. So there's a need for immediate temporary housing. And then there's lots of people, still thousands of people living with families. There's people living in hotels. There's people that still can't get back into their homes. So this is a process where we need to be, there's a lot of creative things that can be done with this task force in the meantime, even before FEMA can act. And then in the long term too, because we're not just talking about short-term temporary housing. We'll move from that to long-term housing for these folks as well. So that goes on for quite some time, but in about probably 6 months, FEMA's going to be gone. And I just believe this is the time where we really hope that the best of North Carolina comes out and shines, that people from all over the country are going to come into our state. And we're hoping that the people in North Carolina will step up and meet the real needs on the ground that are still going to be there a year from now for a lot of these families.
How do you contact FEMA? Do you have to contact FEMA through the state, through the county, or can you do it as an individual?
Well, you can go online and you can sign up. If you need assistance, you need help, you can go online and you can do it that way through FEMA's website. Be the most direct path. You can contact the North Carolina Emergency Management team as well, because all those folks are working together. They've been working together for weeks, in fact. So they're sitting in the same rooms, in the same buildings, and you call them and they'll direct you to whatever type of assistance you need and get you in the queue for help.
Well, I lived in Ohio and I've tried to deal with FEMA before.
Yeah.
Not the easiest group to deal with, so what is your suggestion on dealing? Go through the state?
I would go through the state. Yeah, I would contact the state of North Carolina. We have the best emergency management team in the country. We really do. The folks all over the country will tell you that. And like was already mentioned, we were working on this storm weeks ahead of the storm actually getting here. Everybody was getting prepared for worst case scenarios. And as you remember, the storm was coming up the coast and everybody was making predictions. It's going to turn east and it's going to head back out into the ocean across South Carolina. We're not going to have any impacts. And I remember the governor and I still on TV going, listen, don't pay any attention to that. We have no idea what's going to happen here. And nobody ever slowed down planning for worst case scenarios. And so that's why, there were thousands of rescues thousands of rescues of people in rushing waters in the middle of the night. It was unbelievable what our first responders had to do and how they put their lives on the line. I was talking to one of our National Guard members in Kinston who was driving a heavy vehicle through 6 feet of water. The water was pushing the vehicle sideways, but he had to get about a mile down the road through what was a road but 6 feet deep of water to go rescue people that were stuck in floodwaters. I mean, that's what our National Guard does. That's what our first responders do. And the planning and all the efforts that go into that are going on year round. And so our North Carolina team really is second to none. They're pretty phenomenal. But I would contact, if you have issues, contact State of North Carolina, the emergency management folks, and they'll be glad to put you in touch with the people you need to be in touch with, and even help with FEMA. Anybody else? Yeah.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Just one last comment. Thank you all for being here. And I'll just echo our Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest's comments with respect to our governor, Pat McCrory. As he said, North Carolina is second to none in this country with respect to what they do for our communities throughout all of North Carolina, and in particular Dare. As most of you know, we've suffered a lot over many years, and we've had a lot of things going on. And Lieutenant Governor, if you'll be kind enough to express that again to the governor for all of your support, and Ms. Johnson, thank you as well. Jerry, your crew, Malcolm, NCDOT representative, these guys. Anytime we have a problem on 12, they're Johnny on the spot. They make it happen. And again, Senator Cook, I can't thank you enough for what you do for Dare and how hard you work all throughout Dare, our fishing industry, our everything we do. I can't thank you enough for what you do. Gary, I'm hoping that you mentioned at one time, I'm hoping this is the last storm until we can get beach nourishment in 2017, that we won't have to deal with this. Our guys over here won't have to work quite as hard in the future because of that 10-mile stretch of beach nourishment. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Boswell, Umflett, and Vice Chairman Overman. They've been to Hatteras multiple times. We've been up and down this county trying to assist our folks. I thank you for your commitment to Dare County and for everything that y'all do. Thank you again for being here, folks. We really appreciate it.